Happy Wealth Wednesday. Kristen, I'm so excited to have you here. I have been so amazed from the moment I got introduced to you about what you've been building at Gemini and getting this inside look of what seems like a big behemoth institution in a small industry like crypto that's growing rapidly. And to learn kind of some of the inner workings and just all the amazing tools you guys are creating for builders to actually innovate in this space. So I'm so excited to share that story here today. And I would love to just kick off if you could share a little bit about where you're calling in from today and what you're up to.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm based in New York. Gemini is headquartered in New York and reporting live from my work from home station. I live downtown in Soho, my family.
Amazing. And just a bit about what you're up to at Gemini, your role there and what you're working on.
Yeah, I've been at Gemini for about 5 years in a business development capacity. And at the moment, I lead a team who's focused on what we'd call infrastructure solutions. So the idea behind infrastructure solutions is that we provide crypto as a service. So we can be the backends to a platform who's looking to offer crypto services to their own users. So really a B2B to C play. And it's really exciting because of the number of services that Gemini offers, especially in a retail realm. You can imagine that there's a lot of interest from platforms who are looking to grow in that direction. So it's been a really exciting project.
So we ask the same question to everyone when we get started, which is, what was your first ever investment? Do you remember who or what got you kind of in the game?
Yeah, my first ever investment was very much rooted in TradFi. I started my career at Goldman Sachs Asset Management, and in a distribution capacity there, our role was to make our mutual funds accessible to those in a wealth management seat. And so we managed relationships with the largest broker dealers. And as a result, my entry point into any type of financial services related industry was, with a group of really strong women who helped me understand what investing in that space would look like. And so my first investments were very much rooted there. And exactly what you would expect at the time out of a 20-something-year-old who was trying to understand the space. So I'd say in today's terms and what we're focused on at the moment, probably pretty boring, but that's ultimately what led me in this direction.
And what even got you into Goldman, right? Like, how did you, like Kristen, go into Goldman Sachs as the first thing you decided to do, especially if you hadn't maybe even thought about investing yet?
Great question. I graduated during financial crisis and there were no jobs. So I think the fact that I even got a job felt like a miracle. The fact that it was at Goldman Sachs felt really special because when I was a finance major in college, at the time, you understood that in your mind, the smartest people in the whole world were being hired into that place. To even have the look to be hired there was incredibly meaningful to me. But when I look back as to, and trying to understand why that would have worked, how did I actually end up there in a world where I never thought I'd get a job that year or have anything after graduation for a while? I looked to the women who hired me, and I think they truly understood why I was there. They knew I was hungry and they knew that I wanted to work hard and I would do anything to understand what we were building. And I loved being on that team. So when I credit anything to having been able to get a foot in the door there, I think specifically about those women who are still really good friends today.
What an inspiration. I know there's a lot of people within Eve and the ecosystem who are in that space, and especially after COVID, navigating their first careers and their first opportunities and trying to figure out where to go first. And I would love to ask you now, what got you ultimately into the space of blockchain? How did you get on this journey from Goldman to Gemini?
I loved my time at Goldman. GSAM was an amazing place to start a career, but I knew that I was really interested in alternatives and how that side of the asset management business was growing. And I got an opportunity to do investor relations at a really large hedge fund. I think that opened my eyes into what distribution actually meant, who would be interested in what using a network meant in order to scalably reach a certain type of market. Not to make it so generic, but when I left that hedge fund, I realized that a pivot into fintech would be really interesting, just given what year it was and the types of platforms that were becoming really hot at the moment, the types of platforms that I wanted to use to invest. Where were they going, and what was the backbone of how they were built, and what did distribution mean for platforms like that? And I ultimately ended up running the fintech business at a large law firm. And it was there that I started to hear certain partners who were on the bank and broker dealer regulatory side of things talk about the questions that they were receiving from clients. And we were trying to strategize around how they could be thought leaders in the fintech space. More and more questions that I came across about blockchain and fintech and how some of these banks should consider it was really fascinating. That's how I started to learn about crypto. We all had to start to unpack it in a way where they could start to deliver information to their bank and broker dealer clients, family offices, funds, when their clients started to bang down the door. Because it was 2017, crypto was really interesting to everyone at the time. Almost everyone was opening a Coinbase account, and well, what was left? What was next? And a light bulb went off, and feeling extremely lucky, I'd have to say that the best call I ever received was someone who was looking to fill a business development role at Gemini. And I'd heard about Gemini and thought it sounded really interesting, understood that it was an exchange, immediately agreed on the spot to go and interview, and have never looked back. It was the easiest decision I'd ever made. And now 5 years later, I'd say that the reasons I felt crypto were interesting then remain as if not more interesting. There's so much to do. There's so much to build. It's still so early. And there's so many different types of roles that someone in business development can play and make an impact, not just on their immediate firm or their team, but on the ecosystem as a whole. And so that's really how I got into crypto, but it's also what keeps me going today.
I love that. And it goes perfectly to the other question I have for you, which is the role you play in the wealth space now. And I know that word wealth can mean a lot of things to different people, but specifically in playing this role as helping builders connect the resources that they need.
Yeah, I think crypto presents an interesting global opportunity. And I think that if anyone's familiar with crypto, they understand at this point. First of all, there's this democratized approach to wealth, and that should open anyone's eyes to why this is fascinating. It does require builders, and it requires an understanding of how many directions this can go, but also the steps needed to be taken now to make sure that we're growing in the right direction. There has to be rails, and there has to be a starting point. So just like today, saying that you offer crypto isn't necessarily stepping into Web3. Here's a starting point. Just start offering crypto to your end users. They're interested in it. They want it. People want to use the platforms they're familiar with sometimes. We welcome the opportunity to bring retail investors onto our platform at a place like Gemini, but there's this understanding that the number of people who have not yet stepped into the crypto realm may be waiting for their existing brokerage account to offer it. There are rails. So you come to a place like Gemini. If you're that brokerage platform, you can access crypto, and you can access the ability to build that in a customer-facing way for your own existing customers that's accessible now. So you have someone at your disposal who, like myself, can walk you through on a consultative basis what bringing crypto into your offering should look like, how you can think about it. Should it be different? Should we be more creative about it? And then what does building that look like? What are the tools that you need? What do your engineers need to know? What are the docs that you need to be able to leverage? Our team can walk you through that. And our goal is to make it as efficient and seamless as possible.
It's so cool. So as you've been doing this and you've been onboarding all types of companies, from startups all the way to huge institutions, what do you think has been the most exciting thing that you've learned that you would want others to know?
I think it would be that we are still early. And what I've learned is that where we're early, if you have know-how, if you have good ideas, and if you see gaps, especially on the business side, where you understand the need of a certain type of platform or a certain area of commerce or business or investment, any type of wealth offering, you've got the tools to start at a company and help build from the ground up. You've got the ability to step in and offer your expertise and allow others to understand why merging certain parts of traditional finance to crypto makes sense, why using the tools that are available in a Web3 context or just within crypto can do things to help create efficiencies across certain traditional structures. Having the opportunity to look at where you are on an early basis and help fix some things that need to be fixed. I think everyone would agree that there are certain starting places for that type of activity, but there are no shortage of good ideas, and we all possess the ability to step into this space if you're excited about it and want to help build.
Is there a
like this.
person or company in the space that inspires you? I love to, highlight other builders, founders, people that we should check out.
I think about two women specifically who I admire greatly. One is a woman named Sarah Morton. She's building a platform called Meet Amy. She is in the camp of people who want to make investing, especially where crypto is involved, easier, creating seamless access for the people responsible for managing your investments. She's extremely smart, and she's someone who has been able to bridge her knowledge and expertise from the world she came from, and bring it into the wealth space. And I couldn't be more fascinated by what she and her team are building. There's another woman, Rachel Neighbors. She works, on a platform called Solo K. She's allowing investments and retirement to be easier. There's a platform that you can work through that her team has built that allows retirement investing to be no nonsense, and crypto's involved in the back end of that as well.
I would love to hear finally just what advice you would give to somebody getting started.
If you're interested in offering crypto as another part of your existing platform, or if you're interested in building a platform from scratch where crypto is your main offering, I'd say reach out to my team. We can help think through the ways we've seen something be done, more easily. We can walk you through connectivity points that may have been a less straightforward option, and we can share documentation with you that allows you to understand the starting points. Is it buy, sell, hold? Is it something that can be easily incorporated in a V1? And then let's work together on what your V2 should look like. What does this look like 5 years from now? I think if you have a vision for offering it at all, start with understanding who your reliable platforms are for those pipes. My recommendation would be to understand the regulation around your specific type of platform. And if any regulation is required at all, especially from the custody side of things, because that's truly what Gemini is. At our core, we are a custodian. We're a trust company that's regulated by the New York Department of Financial Services. There are some states that simply have drawn a line in the sand to say, if you're not a trust company, you cannot be custodying this type of fund. And so we are seeing more and more platforms who maybe they started off with certain licensing that was not a trust, and they've had to pivot. We've had to work with them. We'll work together to make sure that your offering can be broad and across all 50 states. Look at what's required of you and then understand who you want to work with. We'd highly recommend that a regulated platform is the pipes of what you're doing, just given the nature of how tricky crypto assets still are and what can go wrong. And I'd say that's a great place to start. Understanding what this could look like for you in about 5 years, and understanding what type of guidance you need and understanding how structured you need it to be.
Couldn't agree more. It can be scary for new builders, especially to think about the regulatory environment and risks. But there are resources, there are incredible networks of people to help navigate that and get the best information that you need. So I've loved kind of sharing your story here today and just getting to know you over the last couple of years. How can other people stay in touch with what you're building, what you guys are up to at Gemini, and just your own personal story as a builder?
Sure, you can follow me on LinkedIn. I need to get better at posting. I would fully admit I don't know that we've had the time to create a post for every exciting thing we've been working on within my realm at Gemini. But our institutional page does talk about what we've been working on, who we're partnering with, and who is trusting our rails. You can always email me, just first name dot last name at gemini.com, especially if someone really wants to entertain the concept of building here. And I'd love to be a resource. I'd love to stay in touch and help anybody who's thinking through this journey establish what their starting point could be.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kristen, for everything you're doing, for joining us today and sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me.